Welcome to the West Ham Weekly on the West Ham Voice on a Monday night. Thank you for joining me. Mixed emotions, not a great two games that we played after our triumph over Everton the weekend before last. We went to Freiburg on Thursday and got beaten by a German team that is average at best. And then, of course, we had Burnley, bottom of the table club, visiting West Ham United. Hadn't won a game for something like, I don't know, 8-9 games or whatever it is. And by halftime, they were 2-0 up. So I'm sure you're all cock-a-hoop with those kind of results. But I'm going to talk about not so much the Freiburg game. I've done that one. I've completely forgotten about it already. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the Burnley game in a moment. Also, of course, a look ahead to our game against our return leg against Freiburg this Thursday, a 5:45 kickoff at the London Stadium. Is that going to generate enough of an atmosphere to give us that Seville-like feeling 2 years ago? Who knows? Apparently, the game is not sold out. Of course, many people being put off or just simply can't make a game at 5:45. Thanks, UEFA. It's bad enough that one or two results or one or two decisions haven't gone our way lately, both in Europe and in the Premier League. But to add insult to injury, UEFA decided to put us on at 5:45 because, of course, why would you want to interfere with a live game where Liverpool are playing at 8 o'clock in the evening or whatever time it's going to be on? So I'm going to talk about that and give you a bit of a roundup as well of all the weekly news. But before I do that, let's, of course, do the usual and go in and say hello to everybody. Shaky, good evening to you, mate. A punt for 21:33. You're wrong there, mate. Good evening, Toher. How are you? I'd sneak in first. Well done, Toher. I think you were right. Starting 15 minutes later, surely I'd be on time. Well, yeah. Good guess. Usual. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Good evening to you, Lord Patrick. How are you? Graham? Oh my God, no way would I ever come on early. Graham from sunny Alberta, I hope you're well, mate. Thank you, mate. Getting there. And I hope you're well too. Good evening to you, Paf. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining as well. Flamer, good evening to you, mate. Moyes out, of course. Got to get it in. Bill, you'll get your way at the end of the season. Good evening to you, Bill. I hope you're well. I think Stell will do the opposite to Moyes and get the team started early at 21:29, just like UEFA. Well, you were wrong there. Montana, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. I thought we were not getting a show because of Moyes outers. I'm one of them, by the way. I know you are. I guess I don't know if any of you are on Twitter, but I shook it up earlier on when I put on there that I'm fed up with the Moyes out, Moyes in shenanigans, and got a lot of responses. Montana, Stell, has Tim started contacting prospective managers? I don't think we should have Europe next season. We need to start planning as soon as possible. Well, yeah, he's spoken to David Moyes and he's asked him, David, are you available for another 2 years? And Mr. Moyes said, I'll think about it. Galispero to you, Keith. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Good evening to you, Howard. I hope you're well. How are you? Who else have we got? Make it happen. Good evening again. No, I don't think I was late. Maybe a minute. Adam, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Good evening, Mr. McLaren. I hope you're well. Back at football yesterday, I think you were. I didn't see you. I wasn't there, unfortunately, but I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed it. Good evening to you, Sean. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining as well. Good evening, Lee. How are you? I'm here. Daniela, how are you? Good evening to you. Martin, I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Steve Irons, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. Henry, good evening. Everyone, if you aren't going to the game on Thursday, please reconsider. I want a Seville repeat. Kickoff isn't ideal, but just get down there. That's what I think. This could be our last hurrah, and God knows how long for. If we go out of Europe on Thursday, I don't think we will, but if we do, and then we don't qualify for Europe through the league, how long will it be before we're back in Europe again? Jerry, I hope you're well, mate. So good evening to you. Good evening, Steve. How are you? And Lee as well. Good evening, West Ham family. Massive Overland Sea. Thank you very much. I've got 100 people watching, so if you're new to the channel, do hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell notification. But if you can only muster the like button, I'll take that. Well, hit the subscribe button at the same time. Good evening, George. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining as well. Vina, I hope you're well. Ings was really clinical. I really enjoyed his contribution. Same with Antonio. Totally agree on both counts there. Gives us a little bit of hope, doesn't it, really? Yes, I am going on Thursday. Definitely. I look forward to that ish. Flemmer, can't wait to on Thursday end this European. I don't. I want to carry on. I don't care who's in charge. I want to carry on going on European tours. I'm already planning the next one, just in case we get there. Darren, I hope you're well. Good to see you over in Germany, mate. It's good fun, wasn't it? It was a good 3 days of solid madness. Man, don't give. Good evening to you. Against Brentford and Everton, Soucek was brilliant. Yeah, agreed. How come he's been moved back to central defensive midfield? Why does Moyes do these things? He's crazy or stubborn. It's an interesting question. I do agree with you. Further forward, he looks the deal. I actually thought that Calvin Phillips would have started alongside either Calvin Phillips starting or alongside Alvarez on Sunday. So I don't know, mate. I think Moyes is thinking that some of his midfielders are versatile enough to be able to play two positions, either holding midfield or advanced. A good box-to-box midfielder should be able to do both. But I agree with you. I think he was better further ahead, and of course he got us goals and creates goals, etc. when he does play further ahead. Archangel, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. West Ham rollercoaster per results again. Deja vu for 3 seasons now. What are your thoughts on news regarding Moyes' son? I'm shocked by this, to be quite honest with you, Archangel. That news was broken. Let me give you a guess. 3 years ago, David Moyes Jr. was appointed to the West Ham scouting team 3 years ago. Why this? Is it Alan Dixon? I don't know the person's name, the journalist's name. Why he's decided to break it as a new story is beyond me. Because David Moyes Jr. has been with West Ham United, unless he left and he's come back again, which I've not heard of. David Moyes Jr. was a scout for West Ham when David Moyes came back for his second spell. He was appointed in 2021. And why it's become news again is beyond me. It seems rather an odd thing to have come out with. I don't get it. I don't understand why this story is broken as if it's something new. Really weird. Really weird. Hi, James from Los Angeles. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Vina, I hope you're well. Moyes in, out, can't wait. Getting past Freiburg is the important thing. Absolutely. Moyes is really primitive. If you gave him an iPad, he would use it as a food tray. Good evening, Scott. I hope you're well. I booked a day off to watch us on Thursday. Will I regret it? No, you won't. I thought as this is possibly our last European game, I thought I'd better go. Mate, go there, give the team support, everyone that will go. If we can hit the ground running like we did against Brentford, it's going to be a great atmosphere. We've got to go there and we've got to make it happen. Of course the players have got to go out there and make it happen on the pitch, but we can help them along the way. And I'm sure we're going to put in a good performance. I don't want to tempt fate, but I can't see us losing on Thursday. Trini, good evening to you. Chelsea are 3-1 up, so they're closing the gap as well. Christine, hi to you. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Man, don't give. Thoughts on this team still? Soufal, Johnson, Agerd, Ogbonna, Emerson, Alvarez, Paqueta, Soucek, both playing forward, Bowen and Cornet, Antonio on the wing. Okay, so Soufal or Johnson, Soufal will play because I've got news on Emerson, but I'm not 100% sure, so I'm going to hold fire on Johnson playing at right back because I think he might have to fill in at left back. Agerd and Ogbonna, I would rather, believe it or not, Mavropanos and Ogbonna if I had to choose, but I think it's likely to be, with Kurt Zouma having been rested, I think it's likely to be Zouma and possibly Mavropanos, maybe Ogbonna, and I'll explain why later. Emerson, if he's back, yes. Alvarez, Paqueta, Soucek, Bowen, Cornet, I still don't believe is back from injury again. Antonio on the wing, Kudus up front. I like that, but because Kudus on the left, I've said a few times, I didn't think it suited him. He had his best game, a better game on Sunday when he played out on the left, created the goal for Danny Ings as well. So I think because we like Kudus cutting in from the right, and using his left foot to try and score. We've become accustomed to that, and we know he's better at doing that. Also, he's better in the middle, which you just alluded to. But after Antonio's performance, I'll definitely have him in the team on Thursday. I'll come back to that later, mates. Aaron, any truth in Moyes' heart? Just explain that. Yes, there is. It happened 3 years ago. So why, again, it's news. I do not know. Teacher Aesthetic, good evening to you. What a crazy match at the weekend. It was game of two halves, as they say. Daniela 3-1 to Chelsea. Looks like Howe could soon be free to be our next manager. Wouldn't be surprised, Eddie Howe, if Moyes does leave at the end of the season. I don't think Newcastle will keep hold of Eddie Howe. I think many West Ham fans would welcome Eddie Howe. I was never sure about him when he was at Bournemouth. I was always a bit, I don't know. I think he needs to prove himself elsewhere. Okay, he's been great. He's been all right at Newcastle, but I think Newcastle are looking higher, aren't they? Of course, we all should, even West Ham United. But I think Newcastle will be thinking we need another manager to sort of push us further. And Eddie Howe to come to West Ham United? Why not? Why not indeed? Fortunes, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. I hope your journey back from Freiburg wasn't too bad. Oh, of course. Yeah. I told you to message me. Where's the email me at westhamvoice@gmail.com and let's get chatting about doing some kind of collab. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, our journey back from Freiburg. Let me explain to the viewers what happened there. As you probably know, well, those who went out, the journey there was okay. But the journey back was going to be fraught with cancellations and train strikes and airport strikes and all that sort of stuff. So we had to make our way from Freiburg back to Zurich, and our train was cancelled. And I thought I'd booked a coach. Of course I did think I'd booked a coach when I realised I hadn't booked a coach. And then we were finding ourselves likely to have to get on a coach at 5:30 in the morning. Paul and Wiggy obviously were not happy with that. Don't blame them. And then we agreed, there were 7 of us, and we agreed we got a cab all the way to Basel, which cost us €30 each. So at the end of the day, it wasn't so bad. And we got to Basel, then we got the train to Zurich, then we got the plane home. So all in all, it turned out all right. But trying to tell my mates when they were really pissed that I actually thought I'd booked a coach but hadn't booked a coach wasn't the best, most pleasant thing to have done to them. Dean, hi Estelle, how do you think Moyes will set up on Thursday? I'll come to that in a minute, mate. I fear we will sit back and low block. I don't think we will. I don't think we will. I'll come to that later though, mate. Evening, everyone. Ultra. I think Moyes will be leaving at the end of the season and Arne Slot will be coming in. Makes sense in as Heitinger worked to Ajax and Alvarez and Kudus were signed from there. It's a good shout. And I know there's 1 or 2 stories that have been knocking around about that. So I guess we'll find out in due course, or if I find anything out earlier, then of course I'll let you guys know. I think we should use Jerry Ings much more. Why doesn't Moyes? I wasn't a fan at first, but changing my mind. Given Moyes a new contract, by all means, but with conditions. Tim has overall control. I talked about overall control, I think, in last week's show or the week before. Before I do that, when I'm thinking about our journey back, I've got to give some shout outs. Hello to Will, who said hello to me in the stadium when we got there just before the game on Thursday at Freiburg. So hello, mate. Thank you for coming over and chatting to us. And then hello to John and Jill, who we met when we got to Basel Station en route back to Zurich. We met and John came over and said hello, met his good lady Jill as well. So lovely to meet you as well. And all the ladies at Zurich Airport, Andrula, and all your entourage. Great to see you who were on the plane on the way back to Heathrow. Had to throw that one in. So Ings, look, I'm the same. I thought, I'm not so sure Danny Ings can do it. He did really well when he played as a number 10 against Sheffield United a few weeks back. Then no sign of him. He disappeared. Moyes decided, thank you very much, and didn't have any more. Didn't seem to need him anymore. And then he came on for his 18-minute cameo against Burnley on Sunday, and he did superb. He looked like he was really up for it, and it really sharp. I mean, he could have got a hat trick, couldn't he? Yes, and why not? Look, we've got a depleted squad. We've only got 19 outfield players left. excuse me, one of them is injured at Cornet, as we know. We think Emerson is due back, so he could be still out injured for another game or two, for all we know. That brings us down to 17. He's got to use the squad, hasn't he? He's got to. Aaron, 3 years. Thank God he's still gone in the summer. Huge, good evening to you. At the game Sunday, I'm afraid JWP is not a footballer, maybe a golfer, but not with a moving ball. I feel sorry for him. I don't think he's been doing it for quite some time. It's interesting. I've been saying for maybe the last month or so, I think for Souček has like fallen away, come back, fallen away, come back, whereas Ward-Prowse for maybe the last couple of months has really not been at it at all. But I also feel sorry for him. Not only has he not been at it in the middle of the park, but he gets pushed out on the left, and here we go again with a player being pushed out on the left when it makes him look even worse than what he is. Flemmer, 40% ticket sales for Thursday tells us something. The fans are the gearbox. Moyes is only the clutch. I didn't realise it was that low. I'm guessing there'll be a little surge, but 40% ticket sales for a game that's quite crucial in Europe. All right, I know it's an early start. It's horrible. An early start. But I'm really surprised at that, to be quite honest with you. Who else have we got here? Paul, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. How was that not a penalty yesterday? It's not volleyball. I agree. And I'll do a review. When I've said my hellos, I'll do a quick review of the game as well. Keith, it don't matter that Moyes' son is on the payroll. It doesn't mean he's staying. We've had Lampard playing for us, but still sacked his uncle and dad and uncle. It counts for nothing. It does count for nothing. But like I said, for all I know, he's not rejoined. He's been there since 2021. DiCanio, good evening to you, mate. Good to see the hard-earned work of regular away fans, such as Ginge, Cotty and Clive Allen, being rewarded for the priority points with a trip to Freiburg. Who else have we got here? Man don't give. Mavropanos has been the best defender, but let's be honest, he's shit as well. Really isn't he? Hot and cold, yet another one who, has a couple of good games, a couple of bad games, a couple of good games, a couple of bad games, and it's really quite frustrating. Montana. Still, all we Moyes outers just want the team to play like they did against Brentford. Why can't Moyes do it week in, week out? I wish I could answer that. Look at the game on Sunday. The first half was turgid. The second half was as if a completely new team came out on the park. Barry, good evening to you, mate. Phillips stank the house out. Moyes had in wet dream midfield yesterday. Souček, Ward-Prowse, and Phillips didn't work, did it? Sean, Danny Ings hat-trick incoming. Give the man a chance. Who knows? I mean, stranger things have happened, haven't they? Andrew, good evening to you, mate. Don't want to see JWP, Phillips, and Souček in the same midfield again. If Moyes does, he should be fired from dereliction of duty. Look, one of the things is that we complain about Moyes not using the squad, and I'm not surprised that he used Ward-Prowse, Phillips and Souček, to be quite honest with you. What I am surprised at is the fact that it was so poor. It was so poor. Phillips was completely out of sorts. JWP, as we've all said, especially when he moved out to the left, was just nowhere. And Souček, it's interesting, isn't it? Because as someone has said earlier, if he played further forward, who knows? Why not use Ward-Prowse deeper? I know it may be that Souček is better being further forward if you've got Souček and Ward-Prowse in the same team. So then drop Ward-Prowse. He can spray the ball around and use it from the middle of the park instead of going out on the left, which is useless. Evening, Juha. I hope you're well. James Fitzgerald. Callum Marshall loan doesn't look worthwhile at the moment. 3 games ago, West Brom had 3 injuries with forwards. Jed Wallace led the line and CM was the sub and didn't play even though 5 subs were used. I know. He wasn't even on the bench, James, unfortunately. And that was one I was really hoping for, to be honest. And it's disappointing. It is. James, evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Let's scroll down. Let's get a few more comments in. Good evening to you, Foxes, from people that haven't already commented. Who have got? Oh, usual. Let's go to usual. Apparently, some sports journalists in Holland reckon that Slot coming to West Ham is a done deal. No, basically, I think it's a load of bollocks. Because, look, Moyes, I think behind the scenes, Moyes coming out a few weeks ago and saying, I've yet to decide about the contract. I think that's a given that he's not going to stay. I think it's kind of written all over that he's not going to stay. Yes, quite possibly or not possibly. Yes, absolutely. If that's the case, West Ham United should be looking for his successor. Absolutely. Arne Slot could be one of them. But I don't think anything's a done deal just yet. I think West Ham are going to wait. We just mentioned Eddie Howe a few minutes ago. If Eddie Howe is available, I think West Ham United are going to go for a manager who's going to be here for the long term, is what I really think. I said last week I was putting a show together about potential managers. Unfortunately, things have happened that, being in Freiburg, etc., got distracted from doing that. But I will come back to this, and I will do a brief show later this week to talk about potential managers, because I've got a theory about the type of manager West Ham United are looking for, and I can almost guarantee that it may not be a manager from abroad. But I'll come back to that. Andrew, I just don't understand what all the fuss is with JWP. Very ordinary player. Been underwhelming for most of the games I've seen him play. It doesn't help that he gets thrown out onto the left, but I agree. He hasn't been playing well for quite some time. Jerry, Souček does offer something when he plays. Heads well, and that special goal a couple of weeks ago. Andrew, Max Kilman should be our number one defensive target. Do not disagree with that. Talked an awful lot about Max Kilman during the January transfer window. We knew we weren't going to get him then, but I think there's a good chance that we be in for him this summer. And depends on whether Wolves want to let him go. Depends on whether he wants to go. Stan, why can't Moyes try to appease the fans and win some support? Look, if he played more like what someone else just said a moment ago, if he played more like we did against Brentford, if he played more like the second half of the game against Burnley, I think he will win quite a lot of fans back. But I think for an awful lot of fans, it's too little too late, to be honest with you. V9, Moyes wants to play with 9 stoppers plus Antonio. He can't let that go. He thinks attacking is reckless. And yet, look what it gave us in the second half of that game. Football with Brownie. Good evening, mate. I hope you're well. I think Moyes pushing the board to get Phillips with such a big loan fee could be the end of the income this season. It's a really good call, really good comment, that. Yes, I don't disagree with you. I think what the board will be thinking is, look, the successes that we've had in the transfer market this season have been the likes of Kudus and Alvarez, and the failures have been Phillips, Ward-Prowse, both David Moyes signings. As someone said on Twitter earlier today, I hate getting involved in arguments on Twitter because I fall for it. I always do. I always do it. I always say to myself, don't react. Bang, there it goes. And someone was saying, if it were David Moyes, we would have got Maguire and McTominay. Do you know what? Under the current circumstances, I think I would have now liked to have had Maguire in the team. I know he's out injured at the moment, but I think, given the way our centre-backs have been playing, I think the only decent centre-back so far at the moment is Ogbonna, who doesn't make a mistake when he's out on the pitch. But when I think about Mavropanos, I kept saying most of the season he'll come good. I think it's just a matter of getting game time. He's got game time, still making mistakes, still misplacing passes. Agurd looks like he's just completely given up. The only time he looked good was when he was flying down the wing. When we went a man down, when was that? A couple of weeks back, when he was flying down the wing, playing as a left wing back. But I think Agurd is going to go at the end of the season. And as we all know, Zuma, his knees have gone. He can't play Premier League football, certainly not on a regular basis. So in a roundabout sort of way, I don't think I would have minded having Maguire in the squad right now. And McTominay's played quite well for Man United in the central midfield this season, and he's added some steel to their midfield. So stupidly, I think Moyes went for the players that haven't offered him anything. Ward-Prowse and Ward-Prowse early season was good, but now he's fallen away. Phillips, disaster. I also said I think maybe given game time, Phillips will come good. That doesn't look like it's materialising. But so, yeah, ironically, if we had Maguire in the team and McTominay, we might be a bit harder to beat, maybe. I don't know, my thoughts. But anyway, Mark, our second half lineup was impressive. More of the same. Absolutely. Toho, Stella's a bit spiky today, it seems. I am a little bit, but I'll explain why at the end of the show. I'm not spiky, but things have happened that, got me a little bit wound up in a certain way. Steve, West Ham should recall Marshall. Surely these loan deals should have agreed playing time, otherwise no point. I do agree with you. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a recall halfway through. You could, if he went out on loan at the beginning of the season and then come, January, we might have been able to call him back. I'm not so sure if we can just recall him back halfway through. It's such a shame, though, to be honest with you. I've got high hopes for Callum Marshall. I still think he's going to come good, but it's sad to either see our players on the bench or not play at all when they go out on loan. Man, don't give. Thought West Ham fans like players who work hard no matter how talented they are. What's all this JWP hate about? I'm not hating him. I just feel that he has fallen away. Unfortunately, that's why I kind of never really sort of been over the top about Souček, because Souček works his socks off. He hasn't got he hasn't got the Paqueta skills and all that, but he works his socks off. But unfortunately, JWP has fallen away a little bit. No hate, but it's just a shame that he had so much confidence at the beginning of the season, but it's fallen away. Tyrone, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. I feel confident for Europa League this week. I do too. Shaky, where did I get my jersey from? It's the old one. I think they were selling last season of the Bow Lane. I got it from the club. They might still have some. I'm not sure. Otherwise, go onto, I don't know, eBay or something like that and look for the what was it? Let me see if I've got a label. I've got a label here. Mate, message me on westhamvoice@gmail.com and I'll send you a link where you might be able to get it. Good evening, Anton. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Kevin, how are you, mate? I'm not attending the Villa game. How do I get a refund on my ticket? You can't. You can put it up on the club website, and they, if they sell it, they'll give you, I don't know, 30 quid back or something like that. Daniela, I understand usual. No reason to disbelieve it, but there's no reason to believe it. Also hearsay. What did usual ask? I don't know. GP, mate, really, seriously, thank you very much. I really appreciate the donation. Anton, you're Scottish, so if you can give us 50p, that would be most welcome. Andrew, I do not trust Sullivan to get the next appointment right. He will go for an out-and-out Daniel Fonseca. You can just bet on it. He won't, because Steidem will have a say in who our next manager will be if Moyes walks away. So I think we're in safe-ish hands. Wish I hadn't said that now. Happy Hammer, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Huge. Stel, what about the Fulham centre-half Tosin? Absolutely. I remember talking about Tosin when he was still at Man City. I think he wasn't getting a lot of game time, and there was talk about him going out on loan. And there was talk about potentially, as usual, he was linked to West Ham United. And I spoke about why don't we sort of go in for him then. Then of course, Fulham came in for him. He's a good centre-half. I think he's a pretty decent centre-half. I still love Oggy. Of course I do. Do you, what about the, who do you think's the best centre-half we got, Anton? Come on, mate. I'd love to hear from you. Espen, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Don't quite know what happened to JWP. Was he played in a different position at the start of the season? I think he played further forward. I think I talked about this a few weeks back where we started the season in a more or less a 4-1-4-1 formation where JWP and Souček were kind of more in attacking roles. And then he started to get moved around. He started to, dropped as a part of a two, which didn't look quite comfortable for him. Now he's been moved out to the left, which is definitely not comfortable for him. The irony is that we've got a lot of sort of attacking midfielders. We've got Paqueta, we've got Kudus that can play there, we've got Souček, we've got Ward-Prowse, too many of them. So what Moyes does, as he does, which we know is really, really frustrating, is that he then ends up having to try and move all these players into different positions. It just doesn't work. Just go out and buy a fucking left winger. Go out and buy another holding midfielder. If that's what you want to use, go out and buy one that actually does that job. So I think he's been a victim of David Moyes' messing around, playing out on the left, being dropped. He can probably do a job a bit deeper, but ideally he's better off being central attacking midfield, isn't he? Or certainly just behind the attacking midfield. Christopher, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Agree with some in the chat that Dino will come good at some point. I think he will, but how long is it going to take? Dan, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Any player that wants to pick passes from deep struggles in our team? That's a good point. Interestingly, one of Phillips's traits is being able to provide those long, deep passes, and even he's been struggling, hasn't he? To be quite honest with you, Hammers Mikey, good evening to you. Mavro overrated. Said it from day one. I don't know. Let's see. Stan, good evening, mate. Would it not be better to get knocked out on Thursday, concentrate on getting into Euros next year, not playing twice a week? No. I get your point. I get the logic, but no, because we've at this moment in time, we've still got 2 chances to make Europe next season. All right. I know it's going to be more difficult through Europa League. Of course, we can get lucky. If we get past, I do think we'll get past Freiburg. If we get past Freiburg, we could end up having avoiding one of the bigger teams, for the last 8. And if you then get through the last 8, then who knows what could happen. So no, I get your point. I understand it. But I think it's a bigger risk trying to make Europe through the league at the moment. Well, as big a risk trying to make Europe through the league. There you go. 3-2. Go on, Newcastle. Get in there. Who do we want to win? Neither. We want to draw. Mando, I knew you were not hating on JWP. I was on about some other stuff I've heard and seen. Sorry, mate. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Rowley, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. First half yesterday was the worst I've seen all season. I think we've seen worse. Why we set up like that against bottom team minders. I'm going to talk about that in a minute because I don't think we set up. I know a lot of people are suggesting we set up to do the low block, defending, etc. I don't think we did. I just think we played absolutely shit in the first half. Simple as that. I don't think we went out deliberately trying to hold off the mighty Burnley at home. I just don't believe. From what I was seeing, that's not what the impression I was getting. The impression I got was we were absolutely dog shit in the first half. Happy Hammer. Good to see Danny getting a bit of game time yesterday. Did anyone mention to Mr. Moyes, look what happens to strikers when you play to their strengths? David Granger, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Paul Evans. Moyes let us down every week. Poor team selection, use of subs, tactics. You can't always win in the last 10 minutes. And ironically, he did everything that we didn't expect him to do yesterday. He made changes at halftime. He brought players on, later in the game when we were still chasing the game, etc. All of a sudden, he had a change of what? Brain or what? Or whatever you call it. Lobotomy, where all of a sudden he was doing things that we weren't expecting him to do. Did you have a word with Lukey about John Lydon? No, I forgot about that, Richard, but I will do when I see him. Hammers Mikey. Oh, by the way, happy birthday. It was his birthday on Saturday. So that was another reason to celebrate out in Freiburg. What is his problem mean? What he is probably meaning is fans who are happy to put up with this Moyes crap ain't proper fans, which I agree. Some fans want ambition, the club to go forward, but others couldn't give a crap. I don't, Mikey, I do respect you, mate, but no way do I accept that fans who still want Moyes to stay are not fans. That's silly. I actually, ironically, had the same argument on Twitter about that earlier on. I hate people calling other people not fans just because they have a difference of opinion. I do agree with you. It will be changing at the end of this season, to be honest with you. I don't think Moyes will stay, but we're all fans. We all see it differently. We all have a different perspective on things. Kevin, I'm off to Amsterdam for my son's stag. I have spoken to him. I hope he's well. I haven't spoken to him quite a while, and congratulations to him. And I hope you all have a great time. Andrew, apparently, if we make it past Freiburg, our next opponent will come from either Liverpool, Marseille, or Roma. I think it's a free for all. It could be any of the other 7 teams. I'm not because teams from the same league can play each other. That means Roma could play Milan, etc., etc. So unless there's something being planned, I thought it was a free for all. Just everything goes into the pot, and it's pot luck, so to speak. Montana. Moyes said he plans to win only 5 games. No, that's not what he said. It's definitely not what he said. He said, looking at 5 more games. I think people misinterpreted that. We've already won 2. People, brace yourselves for the running. Richard, sorry, I'll start again. Did you have a word with Wiggy about the old? Lee, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Ashley, Moyes can't even put a jigsaw together. Vinay, what has Cornet done to Moyes or one of his relatives? Well, apparently he's out injured again. Unfortunately. I mean, this might be, I don't know if you remember in the early part of the season where I kept talking about Cornet's injury and suggesting that maybe David Moyes was trying to take it a little bit easy with him, trying to ease him in. And then when it started to get, halfway through the season, etc., we still weren't seeing too much of Cornet, maybe 20 minutes here, 5 minutes there, etc. And even I started suggesting maybe it's a bit more to it than just his injury. But I think maybe this is why Moyes was being careful, because he's out injured again. I don't think it's the same injury. I think it was the calf last time, wasn't it? I don't think it's the same injury, but I think there was that concern that he could get injured again. And here we go. He's out injured again. Lee, unfortunately, our players are not robots, but they're only human. Everyone has a mistake in them. Just take the game as it is. Plus, not only the players on the pitch, VAR refs and VAR too. Yeah, VAR's not been kind to us, has it? Steve, I hope you're well, mate. Late to the show, not been well lately. I'm still not, but hi, everyone. I hope get better soon, mate. I hope you are. I thought you got a bit quiet lately. Get better. My best wishes to you. Lee, other than Emerson, we need a complete rebuild at the back. I'm not looking forward to next season. I do agree. And here's the irony. I thought Emerson was going to be the weak link. When Emerson came in and he started to play at left back, I kept saying, but this guy's a wing back. He's a left wing back. He's not a left back. And he's proven me wrong. And I agree, Lee. We need more centre backs. We need a replacement for Soufal as well. We do need a rebuild. Let's scroll down. Good evening, Richard. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. I'll message you about it's all sorted. I've just got to message you and confirm about Villa. So do hold on. Steve, the football gets worse and worse every game. Moyes simply has to go. Phillips wasted time, money, in my opinion. Peter, I made the same mistake. I made the mistake of attending the game. A lot of effort on my part. Left at halftime. Too much pain in the knee to put up with that. You missed the best part of it. I'm sorry to hear that your knees didn't hold out, mate. I hope you're well. Trini, look, Moyes is low block and defensive minded. These performances come from his mentality. We need to stop making excuses. No excuses made. But I just don't think the first half was a low block type of game. I just think we were just awful. I really do. We could see in other games when the low block has been used. The low block wasn't in use against Burnley. We were just simply awful everything. Couldn't pass, couldn't maneuver, couldn't move into the right positions, couldn't get the ball forward, none of it. We gave Burnley all the time in the world, but it was different from other games where you can see us just sitting back. Adam, it was a poor first half, and that sort of display is happening too often. And at home, why not go for it? I'm losing patience. It's soul draining. Let's scroll down. Mark, each fan has an opinion. Respect your fellow. This is all I ask for. Everyone's got an opinion. It's right to have an opinion. How boring would it be if we all had the same opinion? But we've got to respect each other's opinions as well. Absolutely. Bazza, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Midfield was poor yesterday, first half. No need to drop Alvarez. Crazy decision. But I get why he did drop Alvarez. I understand it because he was saving him for the game against a game on Thursday. Unfortunately, he also saved Zuma for Thursday's game as well. So I get why he did it. With that team that we put out, should have been good enough to have beaten Burnley without conceding those 2 goals, to be quite honest with you. Jerry, my son was out with Fabianski on Friday. Some interesting conversations. It seems like Moyes hasn't completely lost the dressing room. I don't think Moyes has lost the dressing room at all, to be quite honest with you. It's a good story to tell, isn't it? To say that it's all panic in the background, everything is completely unwieldy, everyone's upset, etc., etc. It makes for far better viewing and far better reading to have that. I don't think he's lost the dressing room. I think he's lost 1 or 2 players. But then that happens at every club. Look at Man City. What was his name that got subbed off yesterday? God, his name's gone. You know who I mean. We saw it we saw it when Man City made that. When Man City made the substitution. I can't remember. Someone will tell me his name in a minute. And the guy, one of the top players of Man City, was having an argument with the manager on the sidelines. He was upset about it. You get that in football. Players that are not playing regularly will get a bit pissed off. They'll feel left out and so on. They won't be happy. And I think it's no different at West Ham to any other club. I think you've got players who are with the manager. I think you're going to have players who are not with the manager. I think a Gerd is a player who's not with David Moyes, for example. Richard, Why aren't they playing for Moyes if they just play crap and not because of the low block? Maybe he's lost it. Well, we just answered that. V9. I know lots of TV fans. Some like movies, some like old films, some like watching the old test screen with the girl and the clown. They're all fans. Good analogy. Tola. Is Moyes being careful with all the other squad players, never played, considerate guy? Careful is probably not the right word, Toha. I think sometimes he does get to a point where he should be mixing it up and he doesn't. And I've said that before, that he doesn't use his squad players properly. Espen, maybe Moyes himself has injured Cornet over an argument. Stan, can we please play with a striker on Thursday and really go for it? Yes. There's only one problem, Stan. We don't have a striker, because I still don't consider Antonio to be a striker. He may have the number 9 on his back, but he's makeshift. But yeah, look, mate, I actually do agree with you. Stowe Irons, good evening to you. Would have thought that Danny Ings would be. Okay, sorry, I'll take that back. Stan, Danny Ings is a striker. Would have thought that Danny Ings would be so effective. Who would have thought that Danny Ings would be so effective with somebody next to him? You know, I think he played exceptionally well, Danny Ings. I really enjoyed the 18-minute cameo. Right, let's get into some quick news and then go into the analysis of the game. So let's start off with what should we start off with? Let's start off with the under-21s. Some quick news. They fell to their only their third Premier League defeat of the season as Fulham stole the points in the London derby on Friday evening. The visiting West Londoners found the net twice in the first 12 minutes, with West Ham chasing the game and looking for a goal to get them back into the game. Fulham grabbed a third in the second half. This leaves us still in second place in Premier League 2, with 2 points behind Spurs, but Spurs do have 2 games in hand. It's unusual when our academy teams lose a game, but yeah, they were defeated for the third time this season. Their next game for the under-21s is a away game to Brighton this Friday evening. The under-18s were, staying with the under-21s, the date has now been announced for the Premier League International Cup semi-final against PSV Eindhoven, which is for the 9th of April at 7 p.m. It's going to be played at Chigwell Construction Stadium at 7 p.m. and ticket details will be announced soon. If you've got nothing to do on that night, get down there and support the young lads. Fantastic for them and well done to them for getting into the semi-final of that competition. The under-18s, a first half hat-trick for Dan Rigg saw West Ham United under-18s come from 2 goals down to beat Aston Villa 4-2 on Saturday afternoon. Villa went ahead within the first 3 minutes of the game, but a hat-trick from Rigg and a late strike from sub Mehmet Halim kept West Ham top of the under-18s Premier League South Division. This keeps West Ham on top by 3 points, but Chelsea do have 3 games in hand over us. So you know, it's going to be difficult to keep hold of that first place, but well done to them for maintaining that. They also play Brighton this weekend at home on Saturday. Some loan news. Flynn Downs and Southampton maintain their promotion push from the Championship with a 4-2 win over Sunderland at the weekend. The Saints were 2 goals up before half-time, only for 2 in 9 minutes from Sunderland to draw level with 19 minutes to play. Southampton answered back with a quick-fire double to secure a victory to keep Russell Martin's side 4th in the table, 6 points behind Leeds United. And in the second, 6 points behind Leeds United in second automatic place. So they're really gunning for it. Freddie Potts was also a winner at the weekend against Reading. They're preparing for the EFL Trophy final at Wembley, which Potts will be part of. We'll be able to say a West Ham player got to Wembley this season. Wycombe Wanderers Wycombe Wanderers won the game 2-1 against Reading at the weekend. So well done to them. Dan Chesters was also in the team for Salford City in League 2 at the weekend, but he couldn't prevent his side from falling 3-1 down to Milton Keynes MK Dons. And it was a good day out again for Christian Heggie, our on loan goalkeeper in the Netherlands, where he helped FC Den Bosch to win 2-1 away to Top Oz in the Eerste Division. Other players out on loan abroad, Saeed Benrahma, who hasn't kept his mouth shut about how delighted he is to be away from West Ham United. Was in the team who won 2-0 against Lorient at the weekend, which pushes Lyon to 10th in the league. Thilo Kehrer was also in action at the weekend for Monaco, where their AS Monaco won, held off Strasbourg to win 1-0 away from home. In Denmark, Nathan Trott was also in action again, but despite a decent start after the winter break in Denmark, Nathan Trott's Visual BK side were beaten 1-0. Right. What about the match reviews? Let's talk about that. Let's start with the lineup. So there was a lot of people talking about the lineup and how unhappy they were with regards to the changes that David Moyes made. To be quite honest with you, I get it. I get that David Moyes wanted to give some players a rest. If it were me, I would have rested more players. I would have rested perhaps Bowen, for example, and maybe started with Antonio. I would have rested maybe Mavropanos and started Ogbonna. You know, I would have made maybe a few more changes than David Moyes made. But I get why he made the changes. And like I said earlier on, for me, that lineup should have been enough to have beaten Burnley at home, to be quite honest with you. We shouldn't have made a pig's ear of it in the way that we did. There was an awful lot of poor performances in the first half of that game. I think, as people have mentioned already, JWP, Ward-Prowse, being pushed out. He started in the middle and then he was pushed out into the on the left to allow Paqueta to go into the middle. He just looked lost. You know, he wasn't having a good game anyway, as many people alluded to. But to actually push him out onto the left side just was the final nail in the coffin for him. But when I think about how we went 2-0 down, you've got to think about, first of all, the goal, their first goal. It was a great goal. You know, there's no denying it. But for me, Agurd, this is why I've got a bit of a downer on Naif Agurd at the moment. Agurd made it too easy for the player. I can't remember the player's name who scored the goal. Fofana, was it? He wasn't tough in the challenge. You know, he kind of went for the challenge, Agurd, and sort of like it didn't look like he was that committed, which opened the space up for Fofana. And the strike was superb. You know, on another day that could have probably flown over the bar. But I think Agurd was a little bit at fault there for not really getting his foot stuck in there. And then the second goal, I mean, coming out of nothing, coming out of nowhere, and then panic. You know, when it seems that it's happened quite a few times before, where Mavropanos or one of our defenders has put out a foot, put out a bit of a panic challenge, and in it went 2-0 down at half time. I really did actually think, to be quite honest with you, that I didn't think we were going to get back in the game, especially with how poor we played. But the second half was a completely different kettle of fish. You know, credit to Moyes for finally making changes at half time. I mean, when the team was coming out, the second half, and I saw two changes, I was astonished. Phillips had an absolute nightmare. Let's be honest. He did. He had an absolute shocker in the middle of the park. And it was no surprise, even though Gareth Southgate was there looking at potential players to call in to the England squad. I think, Phillips showed nothing, to be honest with you. And it didn't surprise me at all that Alvarez was brought in. Look, all right, Alvarez has had a 45 minutes of rest rather than playing the whole 90 minutes. But that's not what Moyes wanted to do. Moyes wanted to keep him fresh for Thursday, but he had no choice but to bring Phillips off and put Alvarez on. And the other change, bringing Antonio on, the right move to have made. He brought Antonio on, and I've been critical of Antonio as well at times, but Antonio did what Antonio does best. He was like a bull in a china shop. He just tried to go through the Burnley defense. He caused them problems. He gave them things to worry about, and we were much more on the front foot, and that paid off. Right, in the first 30 seconds, pulled an early goal back from Paqueta, and it looked like, you know, by getting that early goal so early in the second half, it looked like we were going to win the game. I actually looked at it and thought, you know, there's not going to be an awful lot now that Burnley are going to be able to offer. They're going to be on the back foot. And I genuinely thought that we were going to go on and win the game. And all right, it wasn't working out. And he brought Danny Ings on, and another great substitution. Enough time for Ings to make a stance in the game, instead of it being the last 3 or 4 minutes of a game, which is absolutely frustrating. The Ings came on, I think he had 18 odd minutes, and it was, I mean, he could have scored a hat trick, couldn't he? Where he had one disallowed goal, one shot that came off the bar, and then the goal that actually was given. You know, fair play to Ings. He was put further forward. You know, he had, as people have alluded to in the chat, he had players around him. He had support, and it paid off. I mean, Moyes made other changes in the second half. He put Bowen back out on the right. He put Kudus on the left. He kept Paqueta in the middle. Paqueta supported Antonio up front. It worked. It absolutely did work. You know, and when people were alluding to why can't we see more of this, then Moyes has got that formula now. You know, he's got to start. You know, I don't think Ward-Prowse will start on Thursday. To be quite honest with you, I think there'll be one or two changes. I'm going to come to the lineup that I think may happen on Thursday, but Moyes now knows that with players like going on the front foot, you know, players like Antonio on, putting I don't like Kudus going out on the left, to be quite honest with you, but it worked. He made the goal for Ings. He crossed the ball over for Ings. So, and I guess, you know, what I said earlier on, we're kind of accustomed to Kudus cutting in from the left, from the right and trying to score. Well, now he's got to become a provider. I don't care who scores, so long as we score. And if Kudus can set the goals up, if Paqueta can set the goals up, if Bowen can set the goals up, you know, for the likes of Ings, the likes of Antonio, then so be it. I'd be more than happy with that. So we got back into it, but we should never really, to be quite honest with you, have been in that position. We should never have been 2-0 down against Burnley. Now, and as I've said earlier, I don't think we played with a low block in the first half. I really don't. There have been games when we have done that. Absolutely. And that's frustrating. But I think in this particular game, I just think we played just god awful in the first half. We couldn't pass, we couldn't move, we couldn't do anything right. We seemed lackluster. We just seemed really sort of at odds with ourselves. So it was right what Moyes did, but we want to see more of that in the second half. We want to see David Moyes do an awful lot more of what he did in the second half against Burnley. And if we do that, beating Freiburg and getting through to the last day on Thursday. Right, before I go into the next part of the show, let's go into your comments. Stowe again. Who would have thought that Danny Ings would be so effective? Oh, we did that one. My apologies. Bolo, sorry. Good evening to you. Moyes is a one-trick pony. Get him out of the club before he causes more damage. Sullivan, Kretinsky and Brady, please kindly do the needful and sack this clueless coach. He ain't going until the end of the season. We're just going to... I think that's what frustrated me on Twitter earlier today. You know, we know he's not going to go until the end of the season. We know he's still going to be here until the final kick of the ball of the final game of the season. So, look, we don't like, you know, I've said it myself. I have said it's probably time that we moved on and we just looked at something different now. But he ain't going. You know, he's not going to get sacked before the end of the season. So let's just try and support the team. Andrew. We have no leaders in the side, missing Rice, Noble and Dawson's presence badly. This needs to be rectified urgently when we recruit our next signing, starting with Kilman. I do agree with that. I know Souček was given the armband at the weekend. I think Ogbonna, when he plays, Zuma doesn't play, is also given the armband as well. I like Ogbonna. He's quiet, but he's got that sort of that stature about him. Souček, I know he's captain for his national side, but I'd like to see someone a bit more vocal. Good evening, Jonathan. I hope you're well. What's your gut feeling for Thursday? Will we get a performance or will it be more of the same? I do think we will. We're going to hit the ground running on Thursday, and I'm going to talk about potential lineup, etc., in just a moment when I go through your comments. Paf, what has Moyes and Wiggy's belt got in common? Both. Trini, with a non-low block manager, our two centre-backs would be better, Mavro and Agurd. Zuma's injury meant we cannot count on him in the future. I genuinely do think, Trini, that Agurd's finished. I genuinely do think... I think the way Agurd plays his football is better suited to something like the Spanish league or the Italian league, where it's a little bit slower. I really do think that. I don't think he likes. It's really funny because I remember doing a video on him when we were looking at signing him. That when we were interested in him the first time about 3 years ago, and I was getting together all these, you can see all these videos, and I was clipping them together about the player, and I was thinking to myself, wow, What a defender. Getting stuck in there, the last minute challenges, clear, clean cut challenges, etc. Not seeing any of that at the moment. And it worries me. And I just don't think he wants to be at West Ham United, to be honest with you. Would they be on paper? You're absolutely right. They should be the best pairing, to be honest with you. Dan, if we play Marseille or Roma, it will be a war zone. Yeah, it would be a bit tricky, wouldn't it, for the fans, to be quite honest with you. Ray, I think we know he's gone at the end of the season. Just relax. Good evening to you as well, mate. E. Davis, good evening to you, mate. It was a low block. He put out a midfield that can't pass or get the ball. That's defensive. No, because Souček plays forward. James Ward-Prowse plays further forward. He only had Phillips as the holding midfielder. That's why I don't 100% agree with us setting up as a low block in the first half. So it's too late for Moyes, but if the penny hasn't dropped after that second half performance, then what? Kevin De Bruyne, thank you. De Bruyne, thank you. De Boner, thank you. But I mean, the point I was trying to make is, sometimes you will get players that are unhappy. That was the point I was making. Andrew, so if we win in Europe and finish 7th, is that Moyes' fault too? When we win games, it's like at Everton, those players look pretty happy and happy with Moyes as well. That's the other irony, isn't it, that people put out there. They say that when we win, it's nothing to do with Moyes, and when we lose, it's all Moyes' fault. And we know that's not true. We know that Kevin Nolan didn't take over the tactics a few weeks ago. We know that earlier in the season, it wasn't Heitinger. We know that all this stuff about, the players. Apparently someone was saying that when Kudus had the ball and was darting forward, Moyes was telling him to pull back. I don't think that at all. I really don't. I really, really don't. And it's not me being on Moyes' side, and etc. It's just like, think of it carefully. If that was the case, that the players took control or the coaches took control only and didn't listen to Moyes, why don't they do that in every game? Why do they do that in some games and not others? Crisp, can't play with Zuma. His legs are gone. I totally agree. Steve, we need at least 7 new players in the summer. Get a striker in, a proper target man. I totally agree. I think we do need about 6 or 7 players in the summer. Dan, first half, we looked like we had done very little preparation. Yeah. Baza. So why does Moyes not rest Bowen, Souček, Ward-Prowse? Don't make sense. Why does Moyes not rest Bowen? Should have rested Souček. Should have rested Bowen, to be quite honest with you. I agree with you. Sean, good evening to you. I hope you're well, mate. More so than ever. I hope you are well. Hello all in the chat. I'm all right, mate. Thank you. Andrew, Agurd was 100% Moyes pick, chased him. He was a Moyes pick. You're absolutely right. He wanted Moyes about 2 or 3 seasons ago. Like I said, I remember doing a show talking about Agurd and all his skills. Leslie, good evening to you. Which way will Moyes play? 1, don't concede. 2, need to win. He's got to go for a need to win. There is no choice in this. And I'll tell you why I think more of that. Because of being 2-0 down against Burnley in the first half on Sunday, where he had to make those changes in order to try and get back into the game. That's why I think he's going to go out there and go out and try and win from the off. I fucking hope he doesn't do it the other way. Because if he does try to sort of play softly, we'll get knocked out. Barry, he hasn't lost the dressing room. He has just lost the plot. Chelsea beat, so it finished 3-2. Hat rig, yeah, boom, boom. Usual. Moyes gave the under-21 the team talk before the game on Friday. That's why we lost 3-0. Jerry, I didn't press my son too much. I think he didn't tell me being careful not to break confidences. They were at a birthday bash and didn't want to burden him too much about football. That's fair enough, mate. I'm not asking you to break any confidences. Just email me later and tell me what he said. Good evening, Darren. I hope you're well grown. I hope you're not in pain. Andrew, no point in I'm not that far behind. No point having the youth team. Absolutely pointless. Never going to give a chance under this manager. I will maintain. Look, I sing the praises of the under-21s, the under-18s. I think they're fantastic. I really do. But I think, it kind of proves when they go out on loan and can't get game time, what makes us think that they're going to be good enough to get game time in the Premier League, especially with someone like Moyes. I know people are going to allude to Liverpool and look what they did, look what Klopp did, etc. But let's be really, really honest. Liverpool's for excuse me, Liverpool's starting 11 are better than West Ham's starting 11. I think we can safely say that's true. So when Klopp brings a young player in amongst those 11, they've got better players. My apologies there that I realised that the mic went off, so I hope you didn't miss too much of that. As I was saying, when you got a team like Liverpool and they bring on a young player with their better 11, they've got a better chance of succeeding. Whereas we've got gaps in our squad. We do. Our central defence is not that great. Some of our midfielders, like Ward-Prowse, etc., are not that great. So if you bring in a youngster amongst those, I fear for them. I really do. I don't know. Maybe that's my theory. My apologies for going quiet for a moment. Robert, Aidan Mullins was the coach. He is the coach for the under-21s. Yeah, I read that. Toha. Alvarez looked exhausted in the previous game, so not surprised. Plus, he had too many yellows. Yeah, good point. He needed to be rested. Jerry, he was at a birthday bash. Didn't want. Yeah, done that one. Thank you very much, mate. Let's scroll down. Andrew, I always like Cresswell as a player. He's been a great servant, but he should be nowhere near our first team. It's crazy he's still here. Yeah, look, I agree. I've been talking about trying to get. We should be getting a Cresswell replacement for quite a number of seasons. And my theory on Cresswell, and I'm going to go into the game on against Freiburg on Thursday, is because I think Emerson might still be injured. I'm going to talk about him in a moment, and I think Johnson is being saved for the game on Thursday to play left back. Jonathan should have had Johnson left back instead of Cresswell, in my opinion. Well, just said, I think Johnson will be used on Thursday instead. Bill, JWP did during the beginning of the season. Then Moyes started to move him around. He's not a left winger. I totally agree. Mentioned that earlier. Graham. Burnley was an absolute disaster, but let's hope that crap first half is the kick up the arse that the players needed, and more importantly, our dumb arse manager needed. We can only hope. Not a fan, then, I'm guessing. Christophe. Draws against Sheffield and Burnley this season, both some of the poorest teams the Premier League has seen in years. Not a good look, and those missed points could prove costly come the end of the season. I do agree with you on that. Foxes. Moyes will play Alvarez as a central defender. Not on Thursday, he won't. Pash, good evening, mate. Good evening, Pash. That sinking feeling when you think you got away with just paying for one ticket from the inspectors on the bus. On the Zurich train, then you made. I didn't shout it out. That's my mate Paul, who didn't have a return ticket from Basel to Zurich and got done by the ticket inspector. Mate, what can I say? Man don't give. As our defending is so bad, do you think he sits back as he feels he can trust them? He can't trust them. Yet again, he's been sitting back for a while now. Since when has the defense actually been this bad, though? But considering he's a defensive-minded manager, the shock is that David Moyes can't see a decent defender when he trips over one. It's just weird. It really is. I said some time ago that when we were looking to buy Kurt Zouma was £28 million, a history of injuries, and at the same time we were competing for the Fiorentina defender. I can see his face. My name's gone completely again. We were looking at I think he's Serbian defender. And he was 15 million, a couple of years younger, and not a history of any injuries. And Moyes was flipping from one to the other. First it was the Fiorentina defender. We were almost going to put a bid in, or we did put a bid in, or something went wrong or whatever. Then we went in for Zouma. Then it was back to the Fiorentina defender. Like, I wish we'd have gone for the Fiorentina defender, to be honest with you. Look, Kurt Zouma, once upon a time, was a great defender. but I think he's not good enough now. And maybe that's why we're trying to compensate for our poor defense. Melissa, I'm still going to talk about Phillips till he leaves because we wasted a lot of money on him. You go ahead. You're absolutely at rights to do so. E. Davis, Flynn Downs was more aggressive than JWP or Phillips. Shame how Moyes snuffed him out. Flynn Downs said that he wants to play more regular football. He had a chat with David Moyes. David Moyes said he couldn't guarantee it. And then when Flynn Downs heard that we were getting James Ward-Prowse, he asked for a loan move. I hope Flynn Downs comes back to West Ham United. I think he would do extremely well there, to be quite honest with you, if he's given a good chance. Hammerstad, I missed their goals, tuned in late, but some of the passing first half was amazing. Whose part? What? Burnley's? Mark, Alvarez as captain all day long, proper box-to-box player and hard as nails. Don't disagree with that. Yeah, fair play. Steve, Phillips looked 2 yards off the pace. He looked lost. I agree. Barry, it's not rocket science when we see it. Moyes doesn't. It's not rocket science. We see it. Moyes doesn't. Ings needs someone around. Moyes doesn't know that Ings needs someone around him, and then he'll score goals. Trini, or maybe Agurd is honest enough to know he cannot play in a team that sets up too deep. Yeah, you're probably right. But he's a defender, and he's meant to do a job. And when he did the sort of job he did, I just think he's just been. Just like as if he can't really be bothered. Apparently, David Moyes had a real go at him at half time because of his attitude and performance in the first half. Russell, I think he's gone the minute we're out of Europe. That I alluded to that some weeks back. I'm not so sure anymore now, but I alluded to that some weeks back. I think he will see out the season, to be quite honest. But then if the season starts to go, pear-shaped, then who knows? Darren, Downs is the top passer in the Championship, 93%. And he was as well when he was playing for Swansea before we bought him. Someone just said Downs was a Warburton pick. Bill, that's quite possible. Yeah. But I hope Moyes... Oh, well, you know what? Probably thinking, seeing as Moyes didn't pick him, that's why he's let him go. Andrew, I'm not saying Downs was the greatest player, but he was really given a... But was he really given a fair crack? I don't think so. I just don't see the difference between the two players. No, mate, I would have loved to have kept Flynn Downs, to be quite honest with you. I think he would have got more than enough game time, especially with Alvarez picking up yellow cards, suspensions and all that sort of stuff, playing in Europe, playing in the league, etc. I wish we'd have kept him. Absolutely. Dan, Agurd doesn't like touch-type defending, very good in a race and covering space, which is why I think a different league abroad will probably suit him better. What else we got? E. Davis. Moyes playing Downs as a number 10 was just quintessential Moyes. Put him man of the match performance in Europe and couldn't get a game. That was madness. I agree. Moyes does this stuff to almost to just like stick it in our faces, doesn't he? Steve, we should go for Fofana next season. I haven't seen enough of him to say that we should. Montana. Still, when we were linked to Agurd, it made no sense to me because I saw him play versus Leicester in the conference in the season before. I wasn't impressed. What Moyes saw, I would never know. It's interesting, Montana, because when I was seeing clips of him and when we started being linked to him, I actually thought that given the style of play that I thought we were going to try and play, I thought, good on the ball, being able to take it forward, that diagonal pass and all that sort of stuff. I thought that would have suited West Ham, ironically. It just hasn't worked out. Man don't give. We should give Moyes some credit when it's deserved. Should work the other way also. Hutchinson the other night praised Moyes all game, yet when we went 1-0 down and just started digging out the players. Look, I dug out the players, to be quite honest with you, for a moment. I also dug them out and I thought that they weren't delivering the way that they should. People are saying I'm on mute, but I hope you can hear me again. Espen, it's the same from both sides though. Yeah, done that one. Let me scroll down. Great show. Get job done. Am I back? Can you hear me? Am I a tech genius? Definitely not. Barry. Media loves Mr. Moyes. You cannot say anything bad about him. Cannot stand the man. Huge. Great show still. Let's hope we can get the job done on Thursday. Thank you, Huge. Much appreciated. E. Davis, we have one of the best academies and are bringing 0 players through. The maths doesn't add up. We've only brought 2 players through in the last 6-7 years. Declan Rice and Ben Johnson. You know, this isn't just a Moyes thing. I think, look, you can throw an awful lot at this manager, and a lot of it is true. But this isn't just a David Moyes thing. We haven't had great academies for a long, long time. You've got to start thinking about, are any of our players? I'm hoping on Callum Marshall. Last season, I was hoping on Divin Mabama, who just hasn't demonstrated his capability. I think Mabama should have gone out on loan, to be honest with you, this season. And I'm looking around that you've got to remember there's an awful lot of under 21 players at the end of last season who were let go in order to push the under 18s through. It's the under 18s that have got the massive talent at the moment. Kodua, Callum Marshall, Caelan Casey, George Earthy, etc. All these players were playing under 18s football last season. They've come into the under 21s now. Maybe now some of them might be ready for the next step, whatever that may be. Go out on loan or whatever. You've got to remember that, you know, because the squad that we had in the under 21s last season, most of them have gone. Most of them gone in order to allow the under 18s to move from under 18 level to under 21 level. It's only their first season as most of them. It's only the first season as under 21 players. Mabama was the exception, who played under 21s the season before last, etc. But all these players, George Earthy, Lewis Orford, Scarles, Ollie Scarles, etc. All these players have played under 21s for the first time this season. Let's give them a chance. You know, I get it. I get why maybe not a lot of them are coming through yet. What I'm expecting, regardless of Moyes, whether he stays or not, what I'm expecting is next season, we might start seeing some of them coming through into the senior squad. Can't work out the Andy Irving signing either. Very odd. Apparently, I was told, I asked about that recently, and I was told, what's going on? Is he coming into the first team next season? Apparently, the club that we signed him from is a feeder club. So I don't think we're going to see him as a West Ham player, to be quite honest with you. James, I've heard quite a few people say that we played with a low block on the weekend. Strangely enough, they were all Moyes outers. Christopher, best bit of the show wins. Thank you, mate. Debbie and Mark, good evening to you. Doubt Moyes is going anywhere with him appointing his son. I talked about that earlier on. Let me re-explain for those of you who've come on late. First of all, you've got to hit the subscribe button, please. Hit the like button and hit the bell notification. None of them cost you anything, but it'd be great to get boost the numbers on the channel. I'd be ever so grateful. So having said that, let me re-explain to all of you who have come in late. David Moyes Jr. was appointed as a scout in 2021. The story that's come out is odd beyond belief. I do not understand it. I don't get it. David Moyes Jr. used to work for Wiseman agency, and he left Wiseman, whatever you call it, in order to come and work for West Ham in 2021. Now, I don't think he's left and then come back again. My understanding is he's been there for 3 years. So this story that's broken out seems rather peculiar, rather odd, possibly a bit of shit stirring as well. Paul, that was the best part. Andrew, West Brom were never going to give Marshall a chance as they're fighting for promotion. With a settled team, would have been better sending him to a mid-championship club like Borough under Carrick. That's a good point. Ironically, I think it was because they had so many injuries, which is why I thought he would actually get a shout. Jerry, my son never told me much, so I couldn't stitch him up still. You're our source of information. I couldn't get anywhere without bettering that. Milenkovic is the one I was thinking of. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciated. Hammerette, oh my God, I missed this. Was earring a big fat state. Bit heavy on your ear, innit? No problem at all. Thank you for coming on late, one of our moderators. Anyway, Jonathan, how are you? I think the overall issue here is we set and approach the game wrong. We learn how to play to get a result. Then next game, go back to tight like he had a memory loss. Next 10 games will be hard. Trini, it's not fair to say Zuma is not good enough now without taking his obvious injury into account. That's what I mean. I still think he's a great, he could be a great defender, but he's never going to overcome the injuries that he's got. So he's fallen down. In terms of what he can offer, he's never going to be able to offer it consistently. That's what I meant, Trini. Epic, good evening, mate. Moyes is a dinosaur whose idea of scouting players is going to games with a pair of binoculars. If he's here next season, he'll sign more crap players like Phillips. Jonathan, is it just me that winces watching Zuma run? No, it's not. I think 60,000 fans also wince at the same time. I can hear the cracks and creaking each time. Gary and Oz, how are you, mate? Moyes has bled us dry with not replacing players over the years. He's refused to sign new players. Huge rebuild for the new manager. Huge. And that's the biggest shame of all. The biggest shame of all is, I haven't gone on mute again. Don't do that. The biggest shame of all is that, we have to rebuild yet again. I find that quite disturbing. Now you're going to make me go in and check no, it's fine, bastards. Hammer it. Moyes done well with the second half subs. First half was poor choices from him. Agreed. How far behind am I? Not far. Jonathan, 7 players at least, and then you need to replace Paqueta and a Gerd, who will probably be sold. I'm including them, to be quite honest with you, mates. Trini, the game's changed. Some of their, same as there being no more number 9s, defenders have progressed and become better footballers like keepers. I agree with that. Nando, good evening to you, mate. Morning from down under. I hope you're well, Nando. Thank you for joining, mate. Adam, Burnley outplayed us first half. Couldn't even pass to each other. We couldn't put 2 passes together. Just didn't seem aggressive enough for me. Hammer it. Agurd has lost all ability to perform at the level we are at. So long ago was that at the last match he was decent for us. What's happened to him? As I said earlier on, have I really stopped winding me up? Yeah, I think Agurd is probably better off in another league. Andrew, I think our defenders being under constant bombardment for 85% of the game must really tough not making excuses. But law of averages, you're going to make a mistake. It's ridiculous tactics. There is that, but at the same time, some of our players, some of our defenders have just not been up for it at all, to be honest with you. Bill, HH to Hammerette. Agurd fell out with David Moyes before the before the AFCON and wanted the move. That's what we heard, and that's what we were being told regularly, to be quite honest with you, that he did want out. He'll go. I think Agurd will go at the end of the season, unless, of course, we get a new manager, and there's a big difference. Clark with an E. Yeah, heard that, but how can that stop a professional footballer from being capable of being half decent? Surely natural talent overrides more things. Bazza, the crop of youngsters we have at the minute are the best we've had for years. Orford Skulls only just turned 18. Earthy, Casey, Marshall, Kelly, all top talents. Ethos of the club has to change. I do think they'll come through. I don't think all will come through, but I do think some of these players will definitely come through. Diva, good evening to you. Have we ever properly replaced Alan Irvin and Stuart Pearce? Pearce especially brought a lot, I think they both did. I think Alan Irvin and Stuart Pearce brought an awful lot in the background. We've got different types of coaches now. Heitinger, I don't really know what he's like. Heitinger he managed Ajax for half a season. Seems quite decent. Saw him talking an awful lot to David Moyes throughout the game against Burnley at the weekend. I don't know. Mark, but I get your point. I get your point about those. Well, we still got Kevin Nolan. He's quite a figure, isn't he, in the background? And maybe Nolan is the one that some of the players should be listening or looking to. Mark, get him still. At least a new manager can begin to build a squad with players he wants and hopefully suit a more attacking style. Espen, really expect us to do the job on Thursday. Anything else would be hugely disappointing. I totally agree with you on that. Jonathan, whoever comes in, I'm looking forward to the end of this kind of Moyes issue conversation and hopefully some fan unity. As it's in our name, we need to be united. The one thing I worry about with that, Jonathan, and that's another thing I said on Twitter, I've got to stop. I've got to come off Twitter. It does me no good at all. The one thing that worries me, Jonathan, is that if a new manager doesn't hit the ground running, how long is it going to be before fans start saying the board have got it wrong, or the manager's not good enough, or whatever? I worry. I don't want to say this, but it kind of almost feel now it's become part of our DNA to have something to complain about. It goes way back to the bond scheme, back in the in the, what was it, mid-70s or whatever. And then we had other things. We had the likes of the current owners who West Ham fans didn't want. Then we had the whole issue about moving from the stadium, to come to this stadium, and fans didn't like that. Then we had the whole issue about, the fans. It was 6 years ago, yes, on Sunday, when we had the anniversary of the fans invading the pitch because, about the board, GSB out at the time. And I hate it. I hate it. I hate the thought of it. But it feels as if, we have something to complain about every other year. Once Moyes goes, what will happen then? What will happen if, when David Moyes is gone, we get a new manager in, and let's say, for argument's sake, just bear with me a minute. Let's say, for argument's sake, we make Europe, either through the league or, amazingly, we win the Europa League or whatever. Let's say we make the league. We make Europe next season. And then David Moyes leaves. We get a new manager in, and we go out of Europe in the group stages. How are the fans going to be with that new manager then? Or let's say, for argument's sake, a new manager comes in and we're playing a bit more, flair football, etc. But we're not doing as well, and we finish, 10th, 11th in the league, something like that. And I would probably say, well, you're going to have to give the manager time to bed his players in, get his style of play, etc. You would expect, a manager to be given a couple of seasons. Will our fan base give a new manager a couple of seasons to settle in? I'm really fearing that we won't. That worries me. Because we're going to want everything, and rightly so. We want to be better. We want to keep competing for Europe. We want to be in Europe, in European football. We want to be winning domestic cups and all that sort of stuff. But what if a new manager comes in and he doesn't do so well next season, and maybe not start so well the following season? What then? Will it be that manager out? Will it be board out again? Well, it worries me. It worries me as a fan base that we kind of have things to protest against. I don't want to say moan about, but protest against. Andrew, I respect Moyes for what he's done. Tell me your views of what I've just said, by the way, and I'll read them out. I respect Moyes for what he's done. He stabilised us, but he should have bowled out after the cup. He's just damaging his legacy with every game now. Bill, Mark Stell will have either as a starting 10 or 12. I checked and double checked, Bill. I'm fucking going to look now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You'll know what I mean when I put the details up. Hammerett, heard that may have been our own fans fighting in the ground on Sunday over Moyes. Our own kind turning up. I didn't hear about that, but I can assure you we were fighting amongst each other in Freiburg. I don't know how many of you saw it, and I wasn't going to mention it, but there was a young lad in the stadium who was right at the front, who was doing quite ridiculous hand signals. I think you can guess what they were in Germany. And he was doing it, and he was told to stop, and then he stopped, and then he started again, stopped and started again. And then he came away from the front, and a few of our fans had words with him. And it was at half time. I don't know if he was going to the loo or whatever, but he was set upon. And it wasn't pleasant, but at the same time, you could understand it. We've got Jewish fans. I know some fans who are Jewish who were at the game. They wouldn't have been happy with what this idiot was doing. And the Freiburg fans must have been looking over going, what on earth is going on there? Anyway, Bill, I was watching Millwall at Wembley playoffs a few years ago. Best part was watching them turn on each other, then come together to have a go at security. Razor, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Once Moyes is stacked still, we will all have a party. Darren, they were fighting stewards. Not clever, eh? They will be banned for good now. Razor, did we protest against Bilic? No, I don't think we did. Interestingly enough, no, we didn't. Jerry, we had Pellegrini, who we thought was the perfect answer. He was pretty lackluster at best. He came back for a big payoff. Razor, only Moyes won't like a new. Only the Moyes ins won't like a new coach. The new coach will won't do any worse than Moyes, so no problem. I hope you're right. I really, really hope you're right. Robbie England, keep Moyes. Let's scroll down. Melissa, happy. How many more own goals should we expect from Mavropanos? Ben H. When you allow a team to constantly pepper your goal at the chances are our defenders will make mistakes. Our defenders have made all the mistakes, not just the Gerd, because of this. Don't disagree. Said it earlier. Excuse me. Mavropanos has made quite a few mistakes. Gerd has made quite a few mistakes. Zuma has made mistakes this season. The only one I can't remember making mistakes has been Ogbonna. But correct me if I'm wrong. Trini, with a different manager, you would think they set us up to have a go at teams, especially at home. A footballing philosophy would be nice too. Andrew, we can't fear the inevitable as much as it pains me to admit, but Spurs took the risk, but to look at them now, playing great football and winning football. He who dares. Paul, I'm willing to take the risk, can't stand this boring football. Let's stop there for a minute. Actually, I'm down to the bottom, so let's do those. Razor, if we can't get Slot or Company, if we can't get Slot, Company, please, with our players, and Tim, well, Company hasn't exactly done well, has he? Bottom of the league. Adam, if we get another manager, it'll be the style he plays if he starts well, but if by January next year we'll be in the same position as... You didn't finish your sentence. Jonathan, fans will always complain about tactics, team lineup, etc., but the current manager is too decisive. So I think we get a proper manager appointment, then we won't have what is happening now. I hope you are right. Daniela, that hand gesture in the band is banned in Germany, could end up in jail. And the fight at the weekend, it was hard. Fans that were standing were told to sit. Whereabouts was that? We stand all the time. Rowley. Oggy dropped a clanger in one of the first home games in Europe. Thank you for correcting me. Right. Let's go into the next part of the show, shall we? So Europe looms on Thursday, and it's going to be a tense game. Someone said earlier in the show that we've only sold something like 40% of the tickets, which means that if that is correct, we're not going to get the atmosphere that I'm kind of hoping for. Is this our last chance in Europe? Because if we lose against Freiburg, that's it. In terms of playing in Europe next season, our chances might be hindered. It's all to play for in the Premier League. We've got to just about, win every single game or do better than the teams that are crawling up behind us, Newcastle, Chelsea, etc., in order to stay at least seventh. Will seventh be enough for us? Europa Conference League again? Depends on who wins, of course. You might get Villa winning the Europa Conference. You might get other teams winning Champions League and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know how far down it'll go. Some people have suggested it could go all the way down to 8th place to make Europe, but I'm not too sure. But it's a big game on Thursday. It's a massive game on Thursday, and it's going to be one of those games where we have to go out and start to play on the front foot right from the very off. People asked me earlier on, how do I think it's going to go? And to be quite honest with you, if we don't go for it, we will get beat. So I'm expecting a high energy kind of game. I'm expecting the sort of performance that we put in when we started against Brentford. I'm expecting the same performance that we put in the second half against Burnley on Sunday. Anything less than that, then we're asking for trouble. Freiburg are no mugs. They're going to come out. They're going to make it difficult for us. They're going to be low blocking. They're the ones that are going to be holding back, trying to hit us on the break, etc. And they're perfectly capable of doing that. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But one of the things is who we might face if we do go through, because I think you could almost say the number of teams have made it, into the next round. Liverpool, of course. Roma smashing Brighton 4-0. Who would have thought that? Shows how good a team that they are. Milan beating Slavia Prague 4-2. I'm expecting them to go through. Marseille thumping Villarreal 4-0. That was a surprise as well. So I'm expecting the likes of Roma, Marseille, Milan, Liverpool, all through to the next round. And then you've got Karabag against Leverkusen. I think Leverkusen will nick that and they'll go through as well. And then you've got the two Portuguese teams. You've got Benfica playing Rangers, and you've got Sporting Atalanta. Now, Atalanta and Rangers are at home in the next round. You'd expect them to be favourites, but that could go either way as well. Now, I said right at the start of the show, we might get lucky. If we get past Freiburg, and we might be lucky in the round of 8 draw, then, what if we get Rangers, for example? Or what if we get one of the Portuguese teams, for example? I'd fancy our chances against them. Would I fancy our chances against Leverkusen, Liverpool, Marseille, Milan? No. Roma? No. I wouldn't fancy our chances against those teams. But the likes of maybe Benfica or Rangers? Yeah, possibly. The likes of Sporting or Atalanta? Yeah, possibly. So it does depend on the draw. We've got to get through this stage first, but it does depend on what happens thereafter. Then we might stand a bit of a chance to get through. Will we go past the last 8? If we do get a favourable draw in the last 8, if we beat Freiburg and then we're in the semi-finals, then anything can happen, to be quite honest with you. Do I honestly think we'd win the Europa League? Honestly, no, I don't. But let's see how far we go. But we've got to focus first of all on Thursday, and see what happens there. Now, what sort of lineup do I think David Moyes is likely to put out? Now, at this moment in time, I know we heard news earlier tonight that it's quite possible that Emerson is back. I don't think he will be back in time for this game, but I'm going to speculate whether if he is or not. So let me just count the numbers: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players. Bill got it right this time. I did one of these last week when I was speculating who might play in the first leg, and I only had 10 players on the pitch. No wonder we lost. Right at the back. Do I think Kurt Zouma will start? Yes, I do. I think Kurt Zouma was rested in the game against Burnley at the weekend so that he can lead the line. He can lead the back line on Thursday. Do I think it's the right thing to do? No, I don't, to be quite honest with you. I put Ogbonna there because I think Ogbonna, the one thing that he does, he concentrates. If you look at the game against the first leg against Freiburg, the player who scored got in between Creswell and Zouma, both ball watching. The player snuck in between them to score the goal. No one picked him up as a runner in. Now, the one thing that Ogbonna's got, yes, I know he's older, and slower, and you would argue with Zouma and Ogbonna at the back, that's probably our slowest central defenders that we've got. I wouldn't disagree with that, but Ogbonna has got great positioning. If you look at some of the games that he's played, especially against Arsenal, which is the last time he played any game when we beat them away from home, he played he put in a superb performance. Nothing was going to go past him. Defensive rock. And that's why I'm thinking maybe, just maybe, Ogbonna will come in alongside Kurt Zouma. Fabianski, of course, will be in goal. And then, of course, you're going to have Soufal on the right side. And then if we do not get Emerson back, then I think Ben Johnson will take his place on the left side. And I think one of the reasons why Creswell started in the game against Burnley at the weekend is in order to keep Ben Johnson fresh. I hope I'm right. I'm probably completely wrong. And then when you've got your midfield, I would rather he played a 4-1-4-1, but I know he's going to be a little bit careful. So I'm envisaging Alvarez to play alongside Souček in the middle of the park. And then I do think he's going to go all guns blazing up front. I think he will start either with Paqueta or Kudus on the left, and then, vice versa in the middle, Bone on the right. And I think he will start with Antonio. And I think Antonio, the game he played against Burnley, the second half, I think he earned his place. If we can get that Antonio to play, on Thursday, I think we'll be doing rather well. Now, there are some alternative options here, and it's mainly in defence more than anything else. I really do think Antonio will start regardless, but if Emerson is back, he clearly will start at the back. And then he might allow Mavropanos back in order to go along with Zuma. They're all right, not my favoured choices, but I think if he's going to make any difference, midfield, I think he'll keep the same. I think he'll start with Antonio, and then in defence, just that tweak. If Emerson is back, he may be, he may decide to tweak it. The other thing with keeping Ogbonna there is it will help out Johnson. I think Ogbonna is just more astute as a defender. All right, he drops quite deep, but I think it will also help Johnson on the left side. But if Emerson's back, then Moyes may decide to go with Mavropanos alongside Zuma and Emerson. Now, the news about Emerson is that we've all seen the photo of him with that oxygen mask. That's nothing to be afraid of. I think Paqueta had that when he was injured last season with that mask. It's standard stuff. He's got a slight groin injury. It's not too serious, but even a slight groin injury takes a couple of weeks to overcome, which is why I don't think he'll be back on Thursday, to be quite honest with you. I think it might just come a little bit too soon for him. We may see him against Aston Villa at the weekend, but I'll be very surprised if he starts against Freiburg on Thursday. I think that'd be taking a risk. So as I said, if he's back, I think that's the back lineup. Fabianski in goal, Soufal, Mavropanos, Zuma, and Emerson at the back with Alvarez, Souček in holding midfield, and then Bowen, Paqueta, Kudus, and Antonio in attack. But if Emerson isn't back, then I expect Ben Johnson to be in there, and Moyes may go a little bit safer. It depends on what you think, and put Ogbonna alongside Zuma rather than Mavropanos. But the rest of the team to stay the same. What do I think is going to happen on Thursday? I think we're going to go for it. I think we've got absolutely no choice but to go for it. I think we will be foolish to think that we can just play softly. I think we're going to be right at them. We're going to try and get a very early goal. I'm pretty certain of that as well. And if we do, then I think they'll be on the back foot. They'll have to come out. And if they do try and come out and try and create chances for themselves, that's going to leave them wide open at the back. I think we've got more than enough in the team that we have to actually beat them. To be honest with you, it's what happens thereafter. Who we get in the round of 8. Right, let's go with your comments. Stella, I trust Tim's judgment and Brady's ability to structure a good contract filled with KPIs. We all want the same thing, to progress as a team. I've talked about that. It's a good point, Montana, but I talked about, if Moyes stays, he's going to be expected to play X number of young players and all that. No way. Not going to happen. And then there was talk about, if Moyes stays, then he's going to have absolutely no say in transfers. Not going to happen. I explained last week that any coach or manager will have some input into player purchases. The difference is Moyes won't be able to, my understanding is, he won't be able to turn around and go, I want Ward-Prowse, I want Phillips, etc. He'll have to say, I want a player that plays in this type of position, this type of, this style of football, etc., etc. And then it'll be down to Steinen to go out and find him that kind of player. Gary O'Neill looks pretty good right now. Decent. Give him fair dues. I didn't think he would. Do so well, but fair play to him. James, the fans didn't have a go at Bilic still. They turned on the board instead. They did indeed. When the going gets tough, they chuck out toys out of the pram. Espen, I think getting rid of Moyes will be a breath of fresh air, and that the new manager will be given patience as long as he doesn't play similar to Moyes. We don't expect to win something every year. No, we don't. That's a very good point. We absolutely don't. But I just do wonder what our expectation will be. Even if we don't win something, if we don't get into Europe, what then? Good evening to you, Clive. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining, mate. Razor, especially spot on the Moyes in mob. Don't understand the West Ham way. Mate, I don't agree with that. I've been Moyes in for a very long time. So if you're suggesting I don't know the West Ham way, then I'm sorry, you're wrong. But I think everyone's got an opinion. you may not agree with it, but people have a difference of opinion. Andrew, Gary O'Neill's doing an impressive job at Wolves. I would take him all day over Company, who looks to be the next Lampard. Gerrard, big name, failing in big league. Matthew, Moyes is already blaming the fans for our Euro problem. Is he? How is he doing that? I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I haven't read that. Happy Hammer, 7th or 8th depends on the coefficient. In my memory serves me well. 7th or 8th. I think it depends on if teams win cups in the who are above us as well. Mark, need a hypnotist for Thursday. Tell the players the first half is really the second half. Where am I? Not far off. Crisp. Moyes will revert to low block. He's too stubborn. I'll say it now. If he reverts to low block, we'll lose. I don't, and that's why I don't think. Excuse me. I don't think he will. Happy Hammer. If we get Rangers, can anyone help me with a ticket for the away leg, please? Hammerette. I'm quite sure we get to the quarters. Looking at the teams, almost defo there. Bin Dippers, Marseille, Roma. Think that would be the end of the road for us. Yeah, if we get any of those, I do agree. Howard, Rangers will be a draw. Good grief. Matthew, I wouldn't even put Phillips on the bench. Utter disaster of a player. Good evening to you, Scott. I hope you're well. We really should have won it oh boy, don't we know it? Don't we know it? We really should have won it 2 years ago. Man, don't. If Souček can't push up, I'd rather have JWP in there. Ideally, you get Alvarez to sit and push both Souček and Paqueta forwards. Yeah, fair play. Garino, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Rowley, Oggy in 100%. Who else we got? Excuse me. Just got distracted there for a second. Hammer. I was at Rangers versus West Ham in the season's pre-season friendly. It would indeed be a great atmosphere if we got them. Scott, it has to be a Gerd and Dinos. Simply has to be. They actually can run and progress. The ball, Zuma and Oggy means low block. My concern earlier on, I was saying, Scott, is the mistakes. I think a Gerd doesn't seem to want to be here. And the mistakes between the two of them, I don't know. Hamret, Antonio up front, Kudus, Bowen, right and left, Paqueta, Alvarez, and Tati in midfield. James, I thought Oggy and Balbuena were our best centre-back partnership. Not the quickest, but they had positioning and vision. This is what I think as well. Positioning and vision, especially in a game that's coming up on Thursday. Espen, he's totally hooked on playing Bowen up top, at least from the starting games. He may do. I've got a feeling he may go with Antonio at the weekend, to be quite honest with you. Usual. I've watched them a few times this season, Howard. They aren't exactly pulling up trees. Then again, nor are we. Who is Howard talking about? Don't know. Lee. Thanks, Stel. Great. Thank you, Lee. Much appreciated. Always appreciate you commenting as well. Charles, don't count. I'm not counting any chickens, mate. Trust me. Garino, put Antonio left. Kudus as central attacking midfield with Paqueta dropping back a little in place of Souček. Ings up top with Bowen. Yeah. Who do you drop for Ings, though? You're thinking of dropping Souček for Ings. Hammerit, why can't we start the game how we finish games? Have no energy at the start, but always go for it towards the end. Surely it makes more sense to be attacking from the start. Agree. Razor, stop this talking of Moyes staying. Mate, stranger things have happened. You never know what will happen. Matt, good evening, mate. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Much appreciated. I hope you're well. Charles, Moyes in and Moyes don't fight each other. We're all West Ham. Matt, I think we won't get Europa League next season. I think the Conference League is going to be the target. I don't disagree with that, to be quite honest with you. Clive, sorry to hear the news about. That's all right, mate. I appreciate that. Toha, Ings did seem to have his confidence back earlier in the season. He could not hit the target from a few meters. His hair must be well established now. Happy for him. It's probably why. Thank you, people, for mentioning this, because that's how I was going to finish off the show. I'm sure a lot of you are aware that I've got 3 cats. I had 3 cats. And at the weekend, one of them was, we had to put one down because he was really ill. So this show is, sorry, I didn't think I was going to do this. This show is dedicated to my boy, Whusc. We lost him at the weekend and we're quite sad. And I'll leave you with that. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for commenting, and I'll see you all. I'll see you all soon.